Okay, so I will redo what was done in the last class. Few details were given to you. We had the problem of connecting to a database. We've done some exercise in it. At least you are familiar with what are the steps that you are supposed to take to connect to a database. But now the theory behind it. So this is what you are going to see. So let's go ahead with it. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about what is a Jdbc as such, the types of Jdbc that you have, and programming using Jdbc. This part you have already done, but this is just a repetition. Let's look at what is Jdbc. You are already familiar with it. Jdbc is nothing but Java Database Connectivity. So this is the acronym for that. So Java Database Connectivity. What is there in Jdbc? Now you are familiar. Jdbc is nothing but an API for getting connected to the database. So you wanted to connect to Jdbc database, and there are certain APIs that are available inside Jdbc that you can think of using to make a connection with the your Jdbc. The same thing is true if you had a Microsoft Access or Oracle or any other thing. You can make the connection. The procedure remains same. So you have set of functions or set of classes and set of interfaces that helps you to establish a connection with the database and retrieve the result back from it, as well as in case if something goes bad, it also returns the standard error. So these error messages are also written back to you. So this is a Java API for connecting programs written in Java to the any relational database that you can think of using. Okay. It consists of classes and interfaces. You have used a few classes as well as the interfaces which are written in the Java programming language, and it completely incorporates inside. You can incorporate them inside your program and just use them as though they are also some variable or some object on some method of those objects, and just use them as usual. Okay. Apart from this, it also provides some of the tools that are required by the database developer, not database developer, the developers to get connected to the database. Okay. I have not shown you the tools there, but these tools, some of the tools are directly connected with the IDE that will help you to achieve the other things. For example, the IDE itself goes and finds out that you are interested in putting a statement, so it imports a SQL.statement or this kind of thing. So there are some things that it does. It is not automatically done. There are some codes that have been incorporated into it. Now when we talk about Jdbc, Jdbc is a standard that the Sun Microsystem has started. This is a set of it's like a rules or the procedure that anyone, the developer, the database vendor has to follow. So there are certain rules that are imposed, or that certain restrictions that are imposed by the Sun Microsystem, so that both the user, as both the developer and the database vendor are following those rules, and these rules are imposed by using interfaces. You are familiar with it. Whenever you say an interface, when you want a common behavior across every platform, across the different situations, then just put an interface. You want those methods, but you don't know how the behavior, how the actions are taken, but those common set of behavior must be there. You have this situation, just create an interface and leave it to the implementer who is going to implement the details, or who is going to put those details inside it. The next one, what are the things that Jdbc does? Again, you're familiar now. It establishes the connection with the database. This is what you did right at the beginning. Get connection. Then you send an SQL statement. Then you are able to process it. So that's the thing you are doing. There were the old drivers were there, which came with the Jdbc. The old version of JDK 1.1. The newer version is Java X.SQL. However, again they have come back to the ordinary one. I'll show you the list here. This is slightly updated one. the driver list. This was not shown last time. The drivers, the classes or the package which you are using. The olden days, the JDK 1.1 or the older one that is called as Jdbc 1.0 version, which was shipped with the JDK 1.1. The package name was java.sql. Okay, what was there in that particular package was all the basic classes, the bare minimum things that are required to just connect to a database and retrieve the things back from it. That was there. Then they slightly improved it with the version 2. That is, first they came up with the core APIs for JDK 1.2, and they again called it as java.sql. What are the things that were added in this particular thing? Okay, they had added the scrollable result set. What is the meaning of saying scrollable result set? Is you can go forward and backward within the result set. It was not available in the base version, that is JDK 1.1 didn't have that thing. Then they added batch updates. You can update it everything at a time. That was added. Additional programming capabilities were also added. With the version 2, additional optional APIs were introduced. These were introduced for the J2EE, the very first version of enterprise JDK as such. And they had put this thing in Java X.SQL. These new drivers were put there, or new things were put there. It was there for adding the facility so that a beam, I have not talked about that thing, we put the website there. If you want, you just go there and find the details of it. Again, they are not really required because we are not making use of it. Now, if you want to know, okay, what was the new thing, just go to Sun Microsystem, search for the JDK, you get a lot of help, lot of information about JDK. All the things I am not going to discuss here. The next one was the 2.1, which was actually not bundle, it was an add-on package that we have to download separately with that. It had some extra improvements, some bugs which were there, some new facility that they wanted, that was added. The one that is of use to you is the version 3, JDBC version 3. What is extra here is the connection pooling. I have told you what is pooling. You make a active set of connection. When you want to take one connection from the pool, use it. Once your work is over, you don't close the connection. How you are doing in this lab, what you have done is immediately you close the connection. It is not a good idea. To open a connection, some time is required. To close a connection, sometime is you have to spend some time. It's an inefficient way of writing the programs, but you are just beginning how to use it. So if you right at the beginning, if you go to a connection pool, it may be too much for you. So instead of that, just given you a brief idea of how to connect it and how to get it back. Then as you develop more and more program, you will be able to use those connection pooling. Okay, idea of connection pooling is you make active connection, take one, use it. Once your work is done, don't close it, return it back to the pool. So from the pool, take it, use it, and return it back. The good thing about it is, since the connections are active, we don't open lakhs of connection. We just open 10, 15, 20, depending upon what is the load on the server. We make those connections open. The good thing about it is, since the connections are active, you don't spend time in making a fresh connection, waiting for the database to respond it back, and closing it. These are not done. So that time, whatever it is, it could be fractions, but a fraction is does make a lot of difference when you talk about an enterprise application. Okay, this was done. Then extra connector architecture was introduced. We'll talk about JPA later, persistent architecture in the later classes. When I talk about EJB, I will discuss about those things. So this is the idea that we had. How do I connect to the database? Let's go back to the history behind it. How did the things work? In the olden days, it was the client server technology. I think now also you are using it in the distributed classes. You are using this client server model. You have the client which goes and talks to the database, retrieves it and sends it back. This is what you are doing. I think these are the starting exercise of distributed computing. So I think you are doing that thing. You make a connection, send it something, get it back. So you have the front end, which does just the input part and output part, whereas the processing is done at the back side. This was the two-tier application that I've talked about. Then we went one step ahead and we had three-tier application. In the three-tier application, we have the business logic separate, presentation layer separate, and the data layer separate. So three-tier applications were used, and this is what you are doing in the J2EE lab. So you have three tiers there. Where is my arrow now? I'm not getting that arrow. Okay, so you have the three tiers placed here. Your database is somewhere lying at the other side. So you have this database. You have your clients which want to communicate with your system. So your client makes some request to the middle tier. Middle tier, you have the middleware here, which is your servlet, or it could be JSP, or it could be anything. This middle tier, in turn, goes to the database, makes the connection, retrieves the data back, and sends it to the client. So this is how things are working as far as J2EE classes are concerned. So we have separate middle tier, whereas if you go to the distributed computing, you don't have this thing. Even though you may say that I see everything in one same machine, there are three things which are there. You are giving the input in the Internet Explorer. This is even though you are sitting in the same machine, doesn't mean that you can go to other machine also and do that thing if you put it in a real server. There is this Glassfish server, which is your middle tier, and also you have your Jdbc database, which is working. So three separate pieces are there, even though you look at them as a single unit, but there are altogether three pieces are there. This is the situation that you have in the J2EE now. This is what you are doing. Okay. Now this Jdbc, in my case, when you talk about J2EE, Jdbc helps this middle tier communicate with the database, send some query to it, and retrieve it back. So this is the use of it. Okay. Let's say what are the characteristics of Jdbc. This could be one of the important questions for your examination. What are the characteristics of Jdbc? First of all, Jdbc is a call level SQL interface for Java. So when you say call level, we are talking about sending a request. So you send, get it back. That's the thing. You call a method from a remote place or from a local different object, send it and get the thing back. So this is totally independent of the any database management system. So whether you use the Jdbc or whether you use the Oracle, whether you use the MySQL or it is a MS SQL Server, the interface remains same. The steps that you are supposed to follow to make the connection is same. So this is the standard interface that you have. So for the developer, I don't have to learn the new things which are there in Oracle or new things which are there in the other databases which you can think of using. For me, the interface remains same. Okay. Then it is a low-level application programming interface that allows the Java to send a SQL statement to the database and get the thing done. Now remember, when you write this select star from my table, what is really happening is at the Oracle or at the DB, there are some methods that are available. So maybe the method could be, suppose say, if it is a DB, if your Jdbc is there, so DB dot add. One method is there that you are not aware, you are not studied. That method, that kind of method is even there in the Oracle also. You not studied that thing. You write, you start the PLSQL console. You write the script there. What PLSQL is doing? That application actually goes and invokes that particular method, maybe add or some method, which is not a SQL statement. which is like your Java program or the program object.method. It is actually calling that thing. You don't say that thing. What is standardized is your SQL statements are standardized. But when you press enter or when you put the semicolon and go to the next line, what is happening at the backside is that PLSQL or any other thing which will take your SQL statement, then depending upon what steps or what the statement you have written, it will call the appropriate method or one or more method in the database. Database has, if you read the documentation, direct documentation of the database, if you read the APIs of Oracle or any other thing, they have the set of methods which are like your ordinary Java or any other C programming method. They are direct methods. So it became very difficult for people to remember what methods are there, how many parameters are there, how to call the method. It was very difficult. If it's Oracle, they have their own standard set. They won't agree on changing them or standardizing them. They don't do that thing. If you go to MySQL, they have their own methods. This was the problem that invoked this SQL. The SQL that you are writing, select star and other, that part is standardized. Somebody has to interpret that thing and take those actions. Now, in the last semester, it may be your PLSQL console. Here, you are using your ID itself, NetBeans itself. NetBeans is a great product. It does many things. It interprets it with its default database. If you are using some other things, definitely you have to have that particular interface that is able to go there and get those methods. So this problem is there with every database. Because the reason is, you know very well, there are in the last year you have studied different types of databases are there. Even in the relational database you get varieties. So every database has some plus or minus thing with it, and every database is not the same thing. Oracle is not the same as the MS Access, or MS Access is not the same as your DBase, or there are some changes in every database, and definitely the way in which these methods are called, they will be different. So what this particular Jdbc is doing is, it is giving you a standard set of methods. It will do the necessary translation between this method and the appropriate calls that has to be given to the database. Okay, let's go to the next one. Sorry, I have not explained the full thing. This is a call level SQL interface. This interface is totally independent of the database system that you have. Remember, you don't bother about what are the specific commands in the Oracle that you need to execute, or what are the specific method, how the methods has to be called. This you are not doing it. What you are doing is a standard set of methods. Regardless of the database, these are the same methods that you are using. So the life of the programmer is really, they have used your work, they have reduced your burden. You don't need to learn more things. You learn few things, use it to communicate to any database. So that's the idea they have it. Okay, this also allows you to retrieve the data in a standard format and use it. The next one is SQL conformance. Jdbc, when you talk about it, it does not restrict the types of queries that are passed to it. So you can write any queries, any complicated queries, provided you have the standard one. The standard is ANSI SQL 92. This is the standard they are using. You know very well, in the SQL itself, there are varieties are there. What you have studied is PLSQL. If you are using the SQL statement with the Microsoft MS SQL Server, they have TransSQL, which is different from your PLSQL. The procedure and all the things, they have their own way of executing the things. So it is not standard. Again, the problem came with the SQL itself. People brought many different varieties of SQL. So everybody sat together, and you know this story. Everybody sat together and they standardized it. One of the standards was this 92, which is heavily being used. Your queries must be within that thing. If you write a query which is specific, say PLSQL type of query or TransSQL type of query, that won't work. It won't retrieve the data because Jdbc will not be able to translate it into a standard command into the other side. Remember, when you say select star from database or select star from my table, what is actually happening is you send that thing to the JDBC. JDBC translate this into an appropriate call and sends it to the Jdbc. So if you write something which is out of the standard of this SQL 92, then Jdbc will not be able to translate it into the appropriate commands. So everything fails. You have to see to it that this is one type of restriction you have. If you are using it, your sequence must be all standard one. If you use a specific SQL, your query itself will fail to translate, everything fails altogether. Okay? But that is not we don't think that that's a negative point there. You can overcome those things. SQL 92 is, there are broad categories are there. It does all the things that you can think, you can ever imagine. Maybe you can't write a direct straight one line command. You may have to write 5 lines of command, but there is a workaround for anything in the SQL, base SQL itself. Okay, let's come to the next one. Jdbc may be implemented on top of other common SQL level APIs. One of them is the ODBC. Now, ODBC is the same technology as the Jdbc that was created by Microsoft as such. The idea is same. You write a standard code. The ODBC will translate it in and talk to the database. This was O for open database connectivity created by Microsoft. Okay, this was there right from the beginning. What they said is if you're using Visual Basic or if you're using VC++, and if you want to make a use of any database, then you don't need to learn different commands of those database, different APIs of those database. Instead of that, we give you a set of standard commands. Call them. We have our ODBC that will translate everything and give it to the other side. So this is what they have done it. Since the interface of ODBC is standardized, you can use Jdbc, send it to Jdbc. Jdbc, instead of talking to the database directly, it will talk to ODBC. ODBC translates and talks to the other side. So you have that facility. So in other words, if you have, where is my pointer here? Okay, so if you have this Jdbc, here you send a standard command to this Jdbc. Jdbc won't go to the database. Instead of that, it will translate your commands into standard commands that are recognized by ODBC, which is created by the Microsoft. That ODBC in turn translates it and then sends it to the database. So you have this ODBC here and you have this Jdbc here. So you send it to Jdbc. Jdbc won't directly talk to the database. It goes to ODBC, sends it to ODBC. ODBC in turn make the request. So this is one way. Other way is directly you send it to the database. That is also possible. Okay. Why do we use this thing? Why do we have to make involve one more component in between? The reason is there are some databases for which the connectivity is not available in Java. So you can directly make connection. One of the famous one is the MS Access. There is no direct drivers available for MS Access. They have not provided it. But there is a ODBC drivers available for access. So in that case, you have to directly use it. Suppose you want to retrieve it from spreadsheet, your Excel, you don't get direct drivers there. You have to compliance with it. Microsoft has written a driver for Excel or Foxbase, this kind of thing. You want to use them, there is no alternative. You don't get a direct thing. You have that. There is no direct method. You have to go one step down. So you send the standard queries to ODBC. ODBC will send it to the other side. So that is a pure situation. But when we talk about enterprise application, we don't rely on Excel or Foxbase or even Microsoft Access, we need a powerful database engine, and Derby is definitely a powerful one. PostgreSQL is a powerful one. These are on open sources. MySQL is the best known one. Otherwise, if you are ready to pay Oracle or MS SQL, DB2 or any other which is a standard one. We don't venture into Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access can hardly take more than 12 connection. After the 12 connection, it is already dead. You can't make more than 12 connection at a time. That's the limit. The actual limit is 6, 4 to 6. After 4, it drops down like anything. Its performance drops down. We can't think of using it for online banking because at a time there are 1,000 users who are making the transaction. A railway reservation system can't work on MS Access. It will fail altogether. You require a powerful database. And I'm talking about enterprise application, not a desktop application. When I say enterprise application, it has to run at a higher level. It must be efficient and it must be able to scale, or you must be able to scale that thing appropriately. MS Access, it is not possible to scale it. There is, it's not possible. Microsoft itself has said, don't use it for your hi-fi application. If you want to do simple application, do it. That's why sometimes you say that in your project, they say that don't use Microsoft Access. Is the database, if it is Microsoft Access, they don't accept the project altogether. The reason is it is for desktop applications good, 1 user, 2 user, very good, more than 4 user, it's a bad guess or bad database. Okay, that's the thing, but we are using it here. Next one, this is one of the options, this is one of the characteristic. One of the characteristic is the Jdbc, even if you don't have the driver, it will be able to communicate with any of the other databases, provided there is a ODBC driver available for that. I'll talk about what is the necessity of the driver later. Next one, ODBC provides a Java interface that is consistent with the rest of the Java system. What is the meaning of that this statement? Now you know very well Java, the paradigm is object oriented. But when you go to a database, this is not objects here. We have tables, we have rows, we have fields. This is the concept is not of object oriented, but we are trying to relate between one table and the other. So this is a very different concept altogether. When you want to bring that thing into your application, what will happen? So here you have you look at everything in Java as objects. But the people at database, they don't look everything as an object. They look everything as a table, as a field, as a record and other thing. You may have this conflicting thing. So one person thinks it very different way, other person looks at it from a different angle. So this creates a problem. The vision of a developer is different because he is from Java and he just looks into it as a object. A table looks like an object to a developer, but for a database administrator, a table is a table which is like a rows and column. That's the vision he has. So here, if you directly get that concept, different paradigm into this, it's like a person who is just using C programming language, everything is a procedure for them. Writing a function, doing it. A person who is using C++, it is intermediate. A person who is using Java or a C# or other thing, pure object oriented one, for them it is just an object. Everything is their world is object. So this kind of conflicts won't happen because Jdbc, when you look at Jdbc, it's all objects. You just use it. Maybe you were not aware of it. You were retrieving a set of records from your database and you are using it. What is a set of records? Record is you have a table, inside that you have the record. That vision is different. But when you started using it inside your application, it was RS was like an object. You just called rs.next, rs.get integer or get string. It is an object for you. So this thing, we have this Jdbc, it provides that interface. When I say interface, it's not the Java interface. That's the interface when you say it's the look that it gives. So you are Even though you are using something which is a different architecture or different model, it looks same for a Java developer. So your philosophy, in other words, it is the same whether it is a tabular sequence or it is a object-oriented Java. Okay, the next one, Jdbc mechanisms are simple to understand and use. You're familiar. Few commands are there, simple. You get the idea what is it trying to do. Easy to use it. Okay, Jdbc uses strong static typing. You know very well. This is one of the plus point of Java. You define the data types first. Tell what the type it is, what is supposed to do it, rather than you stop declaring it later. So you know very well how the object behaves or how particular things behave right at the time of compiling. Whether it generates an exception, or whether that exception has to be handled, you know right at the compiling time. There is nothing like, oh, I didn't know that thing, I was supposed to handle that thing, I have not handled it, now everything has crashed. It's not like that. If you are supposed to handle an exception, you are supposed to do it right at the beginning. The type is known to you. If this is it, if this is integer, you want to store it like an integer. There is nothing like I may store the other type and other, maybe I don't know what is the data type, I'll tell later. These things are not there. So you have this, the power of Java with you when you are using the Jdbc. So it is easier to check for the type right at the compile time, and this is not a limitation definitely. You are used to it, Java. When you are writing Java program, you are used to it. So this is not a limitation for you. Don't think, okay, I am supposed to say each and everything right at the compile time. So this is a huge restriction. It's not. It will help you in the later stages. Okay. The next one is one functionality, one method. So if I want to update, I have one. If I want to query, I have one. If I want to do something else, I have the other. So one function does only one thing. It is not one medicine for 100 diseases, then you don't know which one it will cure. This is one medicine, so you know very well. So if I get headache, I have to take one tablet. I know that thing. That's easier. Similarly, here it is easy. Otherwise, the beginner will find it very difficult. Only experts will be able to use it. So what will happen to the expert then? Experts are used to it, calling one method for one function. A beginner definitely will be able to learn these things much faster. Okay, let's look at the component. I have already shown a diagram of this type. There are three main components in the Jdbc. One is this application. The other one is the driver manager. I've talked about it in the last class. The last one happens to be the driver. So what are the things which are there? Now you at least have some vision there. Something are known to you. Something like connection, database, result set. Some things are known to you. So this is how it looks like. We have drivers. I'm not talking about the database. We have one of the components as driver, other one as the driver manager, and just at top of it we have the application. So let's look at each and every one of them, and let's say what are the functionality that they provide. Now this could also be one of my favorite questions. Explain the components of Jdbc. So and also when you are answering it, answer it to the point. There are people who answer their first 3 pages are absurd. The question is not asked on that thing. They explain it. Then what is supposed to be written, that is only 4 lines. So don't do that thing. If you ask, this is the usual mistake that they are doing. Write the difference between Jdbc and ODBC. Then it means difference, not the similarity. Please be careful with it. Some of you write 10 similarity and 1 differences. ODBC is able to connect to any database. Jdbc also allows you to make the connection with it. So where is the difference? Both are same. Those all 10 points are neglected. The last one, maybe in between or in between, you write Jdbc is for Java, ODBC is for not Java. So that is one difference. At least one difference is there. That will fetch only 1 mark. Rest of the entire page is not going to give you any mark. So be careful. stick on to what is asked, and wherever required, illustrate with the diagram. Diagrams usually carry the weightage, and draw them neatly. When I say neat, the arrows where they are going, they must be proper. I don't draw an arrow and then cut it, and one more arrow again cut. It's difficult. Okay, nobody has the patience to go through it. When you're drawing it, you know that if there is a marks, it's going to carry minimum 1 mark. Out of 10, at least 1 will be there. Sometimes it is 2. So to get 2 marks, you have to write half a page. You spend some time to complete that half page. Same amount has to be spent when you're drawing. Even though they are schematic diagram, spend some time in drawing them neatly and then produce the diagram in a neat format. Okay, let's come to the first one. That is the application component. What is it? When we say application, you know very well, it's your application that you are writing. Your front end or the application that you are developing, this is one of the components. So application is the one that calls the Jdbc methods or Jdbc calls. It's the one that requests the calls. What are the things it performs? The first one, it requests for the connection with the database. So it's the one that actually starts the show. It's the one that goes and says, I want to make a connection to this particular database, and it's the one that sends the SQL statement to the data source, and it is the one that makes the provision when the results are written back from the database. It makes the provision so that results can be temporarily or permanently or some way it is possible to store those results, the data types that are required. For example, if it is written value as an integer, there is some storage for integer. If it's string, there is some storage. The application is the one that does that thing. It requests the results of that query, and if there is any errors are there, it will also process. For example, exception. In your case, most of you got the exception right at the first execution. Your application is taking care. Maybe your NetBeans has done that thing, but your application is taking care of it. Okay. It's the one that controls the transaction. You know very well what's the meaning of saying transaction. Transaction is something, a sequence of operation. All the operations has to be complete, or none of them has completed. So either you commit the transaction or roll back all the things which are there in it. So that thing is taken care by the application. Okay, either commit or roll back is done by it, and finally it's the one that closes the connection. The next comes the driver manager. I've shown this diagram to you. Driver manager is required because you are not using only one database at a time. You can use more than one database in your application, maybe given by different vendors, or for the same database you may have more than one connection. So any complications could be there. So I can have 4 connections with the Oracle, 1 connection with the Derby, 5 connection with the MySQL server, SQL server. Anything is possible. Now, when you have this kind of complex scenario, there must be one component that manages the entire show, and this is done by the Jdbc driver manager. This is the one that manages everything. That's the one that keeps tracks of what has to be loaded, which one has to be connected, where it has to be connected. Everything is performed by that. I've shown this diagram. I think I've even talked about it. Let's go ahead and see what is the things that this driver manager is supposed to do. The primary purpose of driver manager is to load a specific driver. So this is one thing that it is doing. It is its work to load that particular driver. Now you may say that I loaded it with using class.forName. I never called driver manager .forName, but I typed class.forName. Then how come this driver manager is loading? Somebody else is loading it. What is the meaning of saying loading is when you really want to make a connection with the database, when you call this class.forName, what it does is it takes this class, the driver, whatever, Derby, whatever you have written, Jdbc, ODBC, Derby, some driver you have written that thing, that class is taken up and it is loaded into the memory. It is so it is like you activate that class. That is done by the class for name. Then what happens? The driver manager is the one that goes to this driver, makes it goes to that particular database, retry the value. So in other words, driver manager is the one that drives it. Your class for name is not doing it. Class for name can be used to load any class. You may be thinking, what is this loading a class? You created an object out of the class. So, you have created bank. You create a bank class. Then you say bank B1 is equal to new bank. So how did you got that bank B1? B1 is an object that is created out of this class called bank. How did you get that thing? To get that bank, you must know the structure of that B1, you must know the structure of that class. That means this class must be there in the memory. So who is doing that thing? Right at the beginning when you compile your class, you are doing it. When you say Java and something, this class gets loaded. This is one way of doing it. But in this case, my application is already running. When the application runs, I don't say java.driver.c or driver.class or other thing. I don't do that thing. I start one main class, maybe my application dot class. It gets loaded. That class is only loaded. The other class is not loaded. If you want some class to be loaded dynamically at runtime, you want to load a class, not at the beginning. Then call this method. This method is not this particular class, that class.forName. It is not just used to load a driver. It can be used to load any other class also. If you want that dynamically, if you want some classes to be pulled out and given to you, it is done. You may say that, okay, I am using this java.math.square root. So I am not creating object out of this. So from where did that class got loaded? I never wrote any statement called as class.forName, then java.utility or math. Something. I have not written that thing. How did it got loaded? When you run that main class, the compiler already knew that you are going to use that particular class. That is why it loaded that thing. So here it is not. You are not doing that thing. You are at runtime. You are just asking it, go load it to that particular thing. Now this particular class.forName has many things in it. This is usually it comes under something called as reflection. If you want to, I think some things were done on that particular reflections in your first semester. At runtime, you try to find out what is the structure of a class and other thing. This thing comes inside that. Okay, I think it was done. I won't go in depth into that particular thing. What is the use of this particular driver manager is, even though you may say that, okay, I never used the driver manager dot load class or driver manager dot forName, your driver manager is the one. It actually takes that loaded class, in this case the loaded driver, and uses it for the connection. So that's why we say that its use is to load that specific driver for the given database. Every database has a different driver. It's the work of this driver manager to select that appropriate driver, use it for the communication. What else it is doing? It helps to locate a specific driver. So you might have written forName, Jdbc database, forName, Oracle database driver name, again class forName, MS Access driver. You might have loaded 100 drivers, out of which one has to be selected for the connection. So this driver manager goes and picks up the right driver and uses it for the connection. So this is the next one. It is the one that selects a particular driver. It's the one that processes the initialization. It's the one that goes to the table and makes that connection. The first connection is done to the database by this driver manager. That's why you say get connection. So when you say get connection, it takes that driver, then it knows you want to connect to that particular table, then it goes there makes the connection with that particular table. And also it's the one that provides entry point to the Jdbc functions that you can think of using. So overall Jdbc goes through this particular thing. So all the functionalities are provided to you. Okay, it also performs the parameter checks as well as the sequence validation. So in what sequence the methods has to be called, that is taken care by the Jdbc. Now you might have written a statement like select star from my table, where you have a clause, order by you have a clause. Now these are separate things. How the things function has to be called. There is a sequence in which it has to be called. How to send the things. Now I am not talking about your SQL. Finally to the database, the things has to be sent in a specific order. That is provided by the driver manager. Okay, this picture again I have shown you. Again, the same old thing. How do I make the connection? The application is the one that starts the show. It goes and asks the driver manager, I want to make a connection with the database. So the driver manager goes through all the loaded driver, picks up the right one. For example, in this case, if it's a PostgreSQL, in that case it takes up that thing, loads the driver into the location. What's the meaning of saying loads the driver? Not loading into the memory. It initializes this driver. They pass it for the connection, makes the connection, and once the connection is established, it gives you that connection object to you. Then the application uses that connection object to talk to this particular database. It may use that connection object to send some query, retry something, update something. It may do that thing. So this is how it goes. Okay, let's come to the third component, which is the driver. So driver is the one that hides all the complexity which are associated with the database. So all the specific methods that has to be called to make the things work are hidden by this driver. So this Jdbc, when you send some queries to it, it talks to the driver, and the interface of the driver is standardized. It gives a standard method. That method is translated into appropriate calls and then sent to the database. So what Sun Microsystem have done, they have put restriction both for the developer as well as for the DBMS vendors. Developers, you are supposed to use a SQL 92 statement. There is a set of sequence in which you have to make the connection, call it, close it. You have some restrictions. Same type of restrictions are there for the vendors. Suppose if the Oracle wants its database to be used with any Java program, then they are supposed to write the driver. They are supposed to write a software that will take standard commands from the Java, interpret it and translate it into appropriate command that Oracle is able to understand. So what Sun Microsystem or what Java is doing is, it just gives the standard calls to the driver, whether it is Access, whether it is a SQL server, or whether it is any type of database. What is sent by Java is standard commands. This driver has to interpret that command, translate it into appropriate command that is recognized by the database. Now why not Sun Microsystem is writing these commands on their own? Sun Microsystem, now today Oracle has taken over. Otherwise, people at Sun Microsystem don't know the architecture, the inner secrets of the databases. They really don't know what is happening inside an Oracle or inside a Microsoft Access or inside a MySQL. They really don't know. Who knows those things? The person, the company, or the vendor who is designing, who is manufacturing this particular thing. They know, people at Oracle know very well how their database is working, what is the good thing about it, what is the bad thing about it, how to hack into it. All those things all the secrets are known to them. So what is told by Sun Microsystem to these vendors are, you know what has to be done with your database. We don't know because there are hundreds of vendors who are providing databases. Everybody has their own way of doing it. We will give you only standard set of commands. So my command is add table. It will come like this with the table name and something. You take that thing, convert it into insert table or insert anything into your database and send it to your database. So this your driver acts as a bridge between the commands that are coming from the Sun Micro, the Java, and the actual database which is there on the other side. So this is one of the important component, and always the drivers are written by the vendors, not by the Java or any others. Even you can write a driver on your own, unless and otherwise. Definitely, if you are employed in the Oracle, you may be given that challenge. Otherwise, people don't write the drivers. It's very difficult because you really don't know the inner secret. You know that how to create a table, how to do this and that, but you really don't know how it is going to store the table in the hard disk. In the hard disk, you see only one file there. What is the structure? What is the what we call it as a data structure of that file is not known to you. It is not known to Java. It is not known to the C++ or other community. It is known only to the people inside Oracle. They know it. That is their secret. How to activate them? It is their problem. So the Java is giving only standard things. Convert it into appropriate version. Send it to it. And this conversion is performed by this driver. So let's look at what are the things it does. Jdbc. Every Jdbc requires a specific driver for a different specific vendor. Every vendor has their own way of doing it. So definitely you have to have a unique driver for a different databases. Okay, driver converts all the calls from Jdbc API into the vendor's API. So vendor also has the API. You can directly use it if you want it, but the problem is your application will not become portable because it can only communicate with one database. If you change the database, it will not be able to do it. You have to rewrite everything, go through it, correct the bugs, check the code again, test it. All this cycle has to be repeated if at all you want to change the database. So if you completely tie, say one of the good thing is if you escape this particular sequence of using Jdbc, instead of using Jdbc, if you make the direct call to the database, your application is more efficient and it is more flexible. So because you are making direct calls, you know these calls are directly being used up. There is no translation in between from one end to the other. You directly make the communication with the database. This is the most efficient one, most flexible one. What is the problem with this is, if somebody decides that this database is too old, it can't withstand, there are some problem with it, like the database has to be changed, then you are at a big trouble. The reason is, if the database changes, and since you are using specific commands, those commands may not work with the new database. In that case, you have to rewrite the code or maybe make some correction with the code, call the appropriate functions there of the new database. So this is, we say that a problem of portability of your application for different database will come into picture. If you don't want to do that thing, stick on to the Jdbc. Remember, Jdbc comes out with the price, and that is, you have to pay the price for the intermediate translation. Your command is translated into something, standard Java command. Java commands are translated into the appropriate commands by the driver. There is this processing, extra work that is involved. You need to pay the price for that. Okay. The next one is the if you are using same Java application can be used with the different vendor databases, provided you get the drivers for them. Okay, what are the things that it is supposed to do? Driver processes all the Jdbc method that you are sending and send it to the database. When necessary, driver translates or optimizes the query. If something has to be called, in particular sequence, you know very well. When you compile your application, the compiler optimizes your code. It is done automatically. Same thing is true. The driver will also optimize your queries so that the queries can be executed optimally on the other side. What are the other things it will do? It will, the right first connection is done when the driver manager says make the connection. It's the one that does it. It sends a request to it. It performs the translation. Your commands are translated into the APIs commands of the database. It returns the result set for you. In case of an error, the specific error that is given by the vendor specific errors are translated into Java specific errors and given back to you. So that is also done to you. If required, it manipulates. This is the meaning of it. The vendor specific error reaches the driver. That is directly, it is not given to the user because you may not be able to understand what is going on the thing. Instead of that, that is converted into appropriate Java error and it is sent to you. So the developer just sees the Java error, not the vendor specific error. Next one, initiate transaction if explicitly required. So you can even use it for that thing. Let's come to the next, we're talking about the driver. There are 4 types of drivers are there in Jdbc. Again, this could be one of the questions. Explain the different types of drivers in Jdbc. So, depending upon how you access the database, there are 4 different types of drivers. All of them are available under java.sql.driver interface. All of them has to implement. This is the rule that Sun Microsystem has imposed. If you are a vendor, you want to create a driver for your database, then you have to implement this interface. So there are some methods which are required. Apart from that, you may have your own things. Usually, the drivers have some extra keys that can be used for doing some extra thing. But you can't override the driver and do something exclusive. You are restricted. Some optimization is possible by using some secret keys which are specific for few drivers. Okay. There are 4 types of drivers are there: type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. Type 1 is called as Jdbc ODBC bridge driver. Type 2 is called as native API, partly Java driver. Type 3 is called as net protocol or Java driver, and type 4 is native protocol or Java driver. So we get 4 different types of drivers in Java. Let's look at each and every one of them. Let's go for the Jdbc ODBC bridge driver. Now this is usually used when you don't have the driver for Java. If the database vendor does not like the Java application, if he is favoring Microsoft product, in that case they don't write the drivers for Java. Specific Java drivers are not written, but the drivers are written for ODBC. In that case, if you still want to make use of the those databases, you can use this bridge. Now, when this was right at the beginning, during the 1998s, when the Java came into picture, everybody liked this Java. And Java was just in the childhood, so it was not well developed. But the C++ was there right from the beginning. 1980s, it was there. A lot of developments were there with the C++. So, right at the beginning, before this Java came into picture, Microsoft has already contacted all the vendors, all the different database vendors, and it said that, okay, I have this Windows platform. You know very well, Windows was one of the famous operating system still being used. So if you want your database to be used with the Windows platform in any application of Windows, then you need to provide me a driver that takes standard Windows API and converts it into appropriate vendor specific driver. This was the agreement that was done by the Microsoft with the most of the vendors. Since this Windows and Microsoft operating systems are famous till now, they are famous. most of the vendor readily agreed. Okay, they asked what is the specification, what is that I am supposed to do, how many commands you are going to call, what is that I am supposed to do. They took that thing, they wrote the driver, gave it to Microsoft. So when the Java was in its childhood, the C++ and all this VC++, all these programming language, they were at that adulthood, maybe they already knew the game. So there were many drivers which were available for ODBC. But Sun Microsystem didn't have any driver, and it was just beginning. People just saw a good thing about Java, but they were during that time, you know very well, if you are writing any programming language, if the language is not able to interact with the database, naturally most of the developers won't use that programming language. The reason is most of them are commercial developers, and for the commercial, you know very well, you require a database. So if you are a good programming language, it's not accessing database, then nobody will go for it. Maybe if you specific, some people have some specific name, maybe real-time system or this kind of, they will use it. Otherwise, that language will slowly die. The Sun Microsystem had this Java, which was a very powerful language. Everybody appreciated it, but the problem is they were not able to directly make connection with the database using standard Java commands. The reason was that translator was not available to them, which will translate your Java code into the appropriate calls of the vendor. So if this was one of the bottlenecks. So what they did was, already this ODBC has a lot of drivers with it. So why not just give the call to ODBC? So this was the idea they started with. So they gave the standard set Jdbc. This Jdbc sent the request to ODBC, which already has a lot of drivers with it, and the ODBC translated it into the appropriate vendor specific API, got the result back. The result was from the ODBC was taken up by the Jdbc and was given to the application. So this is the picture that shows you how the things work. You write the application, you call the standard Jdbc API. There is this bridge that bridges your standard Java API to the standard commands which are there on the ODBC. So your commands are first translated to the standard commands of ODBC, then it is given to the ODBC. ODBC will go and talk to the database, gets the result back, get it to the gives it to the bridge here. The bridge will again give you back to the your commands that you call, and it goes to your application. So it's like this part is, if you have written a C program or C++ program, in particular VC or VB, this is your status. Your application, if you have written a C or a VC or VB program, you use this and talk to this thing. It goes here and communicates. This is your VB program. Okay. Now, what is difference in this? Is your Java program is there, it goes here, this acts like some other program, like a VB or a VC program. It communicates like a VB or VC program to this ODBC, does the work. Whatever the ODBC gives back, it is written back to the bridge and again retranslated it back to the program. So this is how it goes. What is the disadvantage here? Naturally, there are two translations that takes place. It is not an efficient way of using it, because you have to first translate it into standard ODBC command. ODBC will take it, translate it to specific commands of a database, sends it back. Double conversions are required for every request. So it's not a good idea. Naturally, you spend a lot of time in actually translating your commands. At one place, your Java commands are translated into ODBC. At other place, ODBC is translated into specific vendor API. So this is one of the bad thing. What was the good thing? Good thing is any database that is working with the ODBC can be used with the Java application. This is the plus point. Even if there is no native driver, even if the vendor says, I am not going to write any Java driver, we are fed up with the Microsoft people, we have written a driver for them, you want to use it, you can do it. To take the ODBC driver, use it to communicate, and which is the one of the database that you are using. Your Microsoft Access, there is no Java driver. Microsoft has not given any driver for Access. So if you want to use it, you have to use this bridge. But they have definitely written a driver for ODBC. So use that ODBC, use the bridge for communicating and sending it to it. We are not using it in our enterprise application. The reason is, first of all, the Access itself is a bad database. Next one, it is a bit costlier for double conversion in between. So we don't make use of it. But if you have some database which does not have the native driver, make use of it. Okay. Let's go to the next one. This is how it goes. So we have your if you are using it, it is not advisable to use it. If you want to use it, my personal advice is don't venture into Jdbc ODBC drivers. It's not, most of the standard or powerful databases vendors have provided you with the driver, use it. If you can't use it, your web server will take the request, your JSP or ASP will be called for that thing. Your JSP will call the bridge, send it to the bridge will translate it to the ODBC, ODBC will go to the database, gets it back, sends it back to the bridge and comes back. So that is how it goes. This is the database of the Jdbc ODBC. There is nothing called Jdbc ODBC database. Database is database. Nothing like specific databases. So this is how the things go. The driver 1, you have the application, you call the standard command remains same, connection everything remains same, this is standardized, there is no problem, but you pay a heavy price for double conversion here. So your efficiency is slightly low. You have the driver manager, it calls the driver, in this case it is not calling a native driver, it calls the bridge driver that bridges your commands to the ODBC, ODBC talks to the database, gets the result back, sends it to the bridge reconverts it back, sends it to you, and you can make use of it. Okay, next one, let's go to the other option, part Java and part native or part Java, and the same. What is done here? In this case, it is not complete. There are some drivers which are available, which are, part of it is written in Java, the other part is not written in Java. It is written in a specific language that is most favorable to the database. For example, part of the libraries, you know what is the meaning of saying libraries, at least one library is include stdio.h. This is a library that has lot of functions in it. You use it, the same thing. There are some libraries are there which are well tested by the vendors, and they say, okay, it's very difficult for me to rewrite everything, again debug it, again test it, it's very difficult. So what they have done is, they have taken some Java part of it, which is easy part they have taken. The tough part they have already written. These libraries are there. So what they have done is they have encapsulated the Java outside this standard library. So some of the libraries, usually these BLLs, are written in C++ or other programming language. What has been done is, here there is no bridge. You have the same interface, standard interface. This one, instead of going and loading some calling this ODBC and asking it to load the driver, instead of that, it loads a library which is not written in Java. What does that mean? The library might have been written in C or any other programming language, which is not even the object oriented. So they have done that thing. So they have placed these libraries. So they are directly calling some methods from this library, using it to make the connection to it. So that is why part of it is Java, part of it is not Java. So that's why we say part Java. So one part of it is Java, other one is a specific library that is written by vendor and it is not in Java. You may say why? Today you may say why, but just imagine around year around 1999 when Java started slowly coming up. How many of the developers knew the secrets of Java? Today you ask any developer, they know the secrets of Java. But in 1999, if you have asked that thing, there are developers who are expert in C++. There are hardly you will get any person in 1999, not today, who will say I am an expert in Java. It was not there. But these drivers were asked, okay, one of the today your project is this. You do this thing. I want the company, the manager came and said to these developers, I want a Java driver. Do it. They don't know the Java programming language. They don't know the secrets of this Java programming language. They were asked to do it. So what they did? They somehow found one option. What is this one option? We have already this library with us. Why not put it inside and give it to the manager? So manager came next day. It's over. Within one day we have completed. How? They used the existing one. You may say that this is bad, but this was really required. Say there is a huge competition. When a programming language is coming up, and if the vendor says, say Java is very good, but we don't have the this driver, what the developers or what the team manager will do? He will select the other thing. You go to canteen, they say there is no biryani there. What you will do? You won't wait there. You go to somebody else. So what is the problem? Commercially, you are losing your customer. Nobody wants to do that thing. People, vendors, this Oracle, everybody is a commercial vendor. They don't want the developers to turn face and go to the other databases. Somehow they want to provide it. It is required. Nokia says I have a touch mobile. Samsung will come up with that thing. What is the pressure on these developers? Time limit is 1 month. Get it done. We are losing market now. Get it done. What is the solution? Somehow they were not expert in Java, knew something about Java, but not very thorough about Java. Use the existing one. They call the already tested one. Remember, it is not enough if the program works. Okay, you type something, gets it. If you type a 5-digit number works, 6-digit, don't type it. It is I have not tested. It is not going to work. This is a commercial one. Test it thoroughly. That is very required thing. You create everything in Java, you need to test it. That was not possible. So this was the alternative. They came up with a part Java, part this thing. What is the good part of it? For a developer who is creating program in Java, it looks like a Java. But in turn, this Java analogy breaks and goes to the vendor specific thing. When the request is given to the vendor, it is not the Java call that is performed. It is this vendor specific driver, that is the API that are being called. What is the bad part of it? Remember, the C, if the program is written in C, thorough tested, procedure programming, it is well and good. It may not completely suit or completely be efficient in a object-oriented environment. So there could be some bugs. If there are bugs in the driver, what will happen? When you are using this thing, because these libraries are not in compliance with the Java, they will break away. When they do it, your application automatically crashes. So this is the risk is there, but there is an alternative. So this is what they have done, partly Java and partly native. What are these proprietary drivers? What are these drivers are supposed to do? These will take, process the Jdbc call and pass it to the your database. So here, your vendor specific drivers gets the Java call, converts it then into the appropriate vendor specific API. Results are then sent back. It's like a ODBC Jdbc bridge, but here it is not asking somebody else to load the driver and other things. The driver, this library comes up with the driver. You load the driver, the library is inside it. So this is the idea that we have. Usually these libraries were DLLs. This is the next one. So type 2 driver wrap a thin layer of Java around the specific native library. So they take the native libraries of the vendor, wrap it outside, wrap it with the Java. So for a developer, Java developer, it looks like a Java, but in turn it is something else. So inside, it's like you buy a gift, you get the gift during the birthday. The gift is very, you look at the cover, very attractive. Nothing is there inside. So that's the thing. But here it is not that case. Something is there, but there may be some bugs inside it. So that was the problem. Next one, these last two are of use to us. This is intermediate data access service, and the idea here is this is meant for intranet application. What is done is, like you have the database server, there is a database server, you have a separate server, this is called as intermediate. It takes a request as Java, it then talks to the database in its native format, gets the request to you, gives it back to the others. You may say, okay, this is the same thing you are talking. Difference here is, it is a server. What is the meaning of saying server? What is a server? Yes, your old operating system server. What is a server? A process whose work is to just listen to the request by its client. So this is a process that starts, it is not doing anything on its own, it is just waiting for its clients to give it a work. So when the client gives a work, it performs that, it performs as though it is its work. So in other words, it performs its work on behalf of the client, does the processing, sends a result back to the client. So here I have, how you have this database, Oracle, or the web server, or these servers are there. Don't think when you say server, it is not the big machines, it is not the separate machine or something. It is one process which sits in between. It takes a request in the standard Java format, Java API, takes it, translates it to a vendor specific command, gives it to that database, whatever the result that database returns it back, it then sends it back to the caller. What is the advantage? You can have one server, you can have 100 applications. All of them are communicating with one. You send the request to this intermediate server, that will make the connection, that will take care of the other part. So it's like a proxy in between. In the previous case, what was the difference? What was the difference? In the previous case, one application, my driver, whether it's a ODBC, Jdbc driver, it is my one application, one driver has to be loaded. What about here? Under application, one person will listen, or one process will listen for all the different clients. Everybody sends it to this, it will talk to the database, sends them back to the clients in their native format. So that's the idea. So here you have a intermediate access server here. So your database sits here. It could be this, you can have anything. You call the native API calls. Those calls are not done anything. That calls as it is sent to this driver. So this is a middleware over here. Like how you have this web server, data server. Some server is there. It listens to, it can communicate in the native format using the Java API. Then, based on your request, it switches to some other protocol or other format, talks to the database, gets the result, and sends it back to it. So this is what it does. So this database access is done via an intermediate server that is running on either a different machine. When we say network, it could be one machine or other. It is just a process that is running. This is best for intranet use. Why not internet use? Why not internet use? Yes, today you have given a query, select star form, student Jdbc, 4 records were retrieved. If you write the same thing, select star from Mangalore table for the railway station over here, the star will return lakhs of records to you. Remember, getting a very huge data from the internet, you know the problem. When it comes from the other side, security issue is there. Leave alone the security issue, you may not even get all the things. So when you request a huge record set across the internet, this is not an advisable one. Don't send a query like select star from the entire thing. Don't try to select the entire whole thing, get it here, then do the processing. Get what is required. Whenever you are writing the enterprise application, always remember that. Get what is required, not the entire thing. Don't take everything. Okay, I'm going to take everything, then I'm going to ignore these fields. This is not required. If you don't want those fields, don't take it. Why? The bandwidth that is required to get the data from the other side is too huge. You are writing an enterprise application, not one client is connecting, you have lakhs of clients that are making the connection. Everybody issues a select star. If the 100 records has to be given for every client, 100 into lakh, it is too much for the database. Also, it is too much for this internet bandwidth to take care. Intranet, you have a high speed, you know very well. Intranet, you have a very good bandwidth. The speed is also there, to make use of it. That's why it is a good choice for intranet, but not the internet. So what does this do? Most of the vendors are providing this kind of functionality, wherein you give the specific, you talk to this Jdbc middleware using a standard Java protocol. It then talks to its database using the appropriate protocol. So that's the thing. So Jdbc clients talk to the intermediate server access using the protocol, standard protocol. There is no need to have the native driver or any other thing. The intermediate one translates it and talks to the database. Okay, this is the type 3 one. It is done via a generic network protocol that is sent to the database. Okay. The same server can talk to many different databases. That option is also there. Okay. Let's go to the last one, pure Java. The word itself will say 100% Java. Entire thing, entire API, everything. Today, Java is one of the first choice for of the developers. So whether the vendors like it or not, vendors have come up with the completely Java drivers. Everything is Java driver, not part of it is written in C or C++. Completely from the scratch, they have written everything in Java, and they have given it. And this is what is the pure Java driver. This is the most efficient one. The reason is everywhere it is Java. There is no translation. There is no intermediate person in between. Everything is Java. It's the best one, and this is the best choice if you are connecting to the any database. Almost all vendors provide the drivers. You don't get it with the NetBeans or Eclipse or any other thing. You download it from the vendor specific. I want to connect to Oracle. I have Oracle here. How do I connect it? Go to Oracle, search for Jdbc driver. They will give you the driver, a zip file. Along with it, they will also give you one readme.txt file. Read it. They will tell you how to configure that driver, where to place it, which folder, where, how, when, everything is written there. Go according to it, then make the connection. Whereas you have done that thing in the lab, you didn't created a folder and other thing. The reason is that Derby is tied. That's the default database with the NetBeans. So all those required settings are already there. When you install it, it will automatically do all those things for you. So the driver, the pure driver, everything it will do for you. But if you want to do it for the others, definitely you need to get it. Now if you are using 6.5, what is there in the lab, it has a lot of issues when we try to connect to the Oracle. A lot of problems are there. If you want to connect to the Oracle, the list is 6.7. If you have 6.7, net means you can connect it. 6.5, a lot of problems in making the connection. 6.7 does it. 6.8, you have already seen there is a character support for that. Okay, these are the four different types of drivers we have. So type 4, everything is written in the Java. It understands everything. So you are directly calling the Java. Remember, there is no translation. There is everything is object oriented for you, for a developer, for the driver. Also, so everything is in the same context. Everything is Java, so it is the best solution. So this is now. This is the last version that you can say. Java application is there. You call the Jdbc. You have the pure Jdbc driver. No intermediate thing is there. Driver manager is definitely required. You have this pure driver. It talks and gives you back the result. Okay. Quick recall of what we have studied. There are four different types of drivers are there. The first one, you make a standard Java call. It goes to the driver manager. In the first case, if you don't have a driver in the Java, what you do is there is a bridge that bridges your call to the native ODBC call. It goes to the driver, it then calls the appropriate ODBC driver, goes into the database, gets the result back to the ODBC. ODBC, there is the same, architecture is same. There is also ODBC manager, there is ODBC driver, whether it's Jdbc or ODBC, the structure is same. Okay, it then sends back to the bridge, comes back to the manager and to your application. What about the other side? You have the Jdbc, you have the driver manager, you send it there. There is part driver is there, so part of it, it looks to the driver manager as though it is a Java, but it is not completely Java. It uses some native APIs which are not written in Java or which is not compliance. It still uses it, makes the connection, gets it back and sends it. Now you may be thinking, how is it possible? Can I use the C program in my Java? It is not written by students like you. It is written by the experts. Okay, that is why that problem was there. So they have spent a lot of time in doing that thing. Next one is the Java application. We are calling the ordinary Java Jdbc API. It goes to the driver manager. Here you have a intermediate server here, so which is a pure one. Then it sends to the middleware. Remember, a separate server that makes the translation for you. Gets it back. The last one, there is no hurdles like this. You directly interact with the database. Okay, I won't waste my time. This is the slide is given because if it is asked for the 2 marks, you are supposed to write this because there are some people for 2 marks they write 10 pages. Okay, so. That's because I have not switched it on. So. But I have just put the plug there and not switched it on. Its battery is down. This is actually 1.5 hour. I think I consumed 1.5 hour. So battery is down now. It is going for a hibernate. Okay, so we are back. This is the final version as far as developing the application is concerned. This is what you are supposed to do. What you are supposed to do here is you write the Java application, then you first load that driver so that the driver manager knows that there is that driver. Remember, driver manager, there are thousands of drivers, it can't keep in track of it. Whichever driver you want, you just load it. So, and give it to the driver manager. So, java.sql.driver manager. Then, you call this thing and say to the driver manager that I want to make the connection. Driver manager, whichever driver you have loaded, based on the driver that are loaded, it will pick up one specific driver and make the connection with the database. If it has succeeded in making the connection, it will then give the connection, that connection object back to your program. Take that connection object, use it to communicate with the database. So this is the idea you have using it. Okay, this is how the things looks like. What is that you are supposed to do? First of all, load the driver which is required. Then you have this driver manager that manages the entire show. So you have this driver manager. Ask the driver manager to make the connection. Remember, first you are supposed to load the driver. When I say load the driver, you are supposed to place it in the memory. That part is yours. Use class.forName for doing it. Load it there. Then ask it to make the connection. If it is able to make the connection using the drivers that you have loaded, so if the drivers are proper one, it will make the connection to the database. So connection represents an object, a connection with the single database. So this is an object that represents your connection with the database. Use that connection to send the query or send some command and get the result out of that command. Suppose say you want to send a query that returns a result set. Prepare that statement first. Prepare an object of type statement. Send it across, tunnel it across this connection. It will go here. The driver will do the appropriate translation and other thing. The results will be sent back to you as the result set. Okay, again you can make the next connection with the next database using the same driver manager. So the driver manager can maintain connection with any number of databases. So that's why it is called as manager that manages the connection. Okay, so what are the things we have? Driver manager allows you to make the connection to one or more databases. Connection represents a connection to a single database. A single database. Statement contains the SQL statement that is sent down across the connection. Then result set is what comes out from a query. Okay, these are the 6 steps that are involved. So this could be one question. Write the steps involved in making a connection to the database. What is the first thing that you are supposed to do? Load the driver. How do you load the driver? Call the forName method of the class. Remember, class is also a class, static method of it. Then you specify the driver name. First, load the driver. What is the next thing? Connect to the database. How do I connect to the database? Use the get connection method of the driver manager to make the connection. When you call the get connection method, you are supposed to specify the location of the database, that is the URL of the database, the username and password, the authentication if required. You are supposed to do that thing. If the connections are not direct, if the database expects you to log in, if there are username logins are there, then you are supposed to do that thing. If the connection is successful, what is that you are going to get? If the connection is successful, you will be returned with the connection object that represents your connection with the database. The connection is not successful, exceptions are raised, then you take the other path. The next one, prepare a statement. Which is the statement? A statement, it could be ordinary select statement, insert statement, update statement, any type of statement, prepare that statement, then give that statement to the connection object, that will translate it to the database and it will do the needful thing. Now there are two ways of doing it. If you are expecting a large set of data, usually called as record set, then the way in which the method is to be called is the execute query method. If you are updating when this method is executed, that is execute query is run, you are going to get a set of records, large collection of records. You have to store it appropriately, and the place wherein you can store it is not an array, not a collection, or not anything else. You have a separate object called as a record set, which will take care of it. It has some methods in it, so place that thing there. If you are sending a update method, for example, insert into, or maybe update where clause is there, if that is there, then what is written back to you is not a huge collection of records. How many records are affected by that particular command will be written back to you. Suppose if you are running an update, call this execute update method. Whatever you get it, process the result set, then finally close the connection to the database. So this is the sixth step that you are supposed to do it. Load the driver, make the connection, get the connection, get the create a statement, pass that statement, get the output, process it, close the connection altogether. So this is what is being done. So we have the for name. Yes. He was supposed to, we started at line 15. So this is the idea. I think you got this. This was shown in the lab. You make the connection. First load the driver. You get the connection. Create a statement, and then I've shown this thing in the lab. Either send a select statement. If it is a select statement, execute query. If there is a delete, update, or insert, it's the update. Okay.